Hello friends, welcome to our channel Creating Essence. I am Megan. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I did a whole bunch of curriculum videos sharing with you all what we would be using for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year in the past couple of weeks. I also did a video on how we do our year-round school schedule, including breaking it down to weekly and our daily rhythm. All of those things were highly requested, and I will put links to those in the info box below in case you missed any of them. But today I'm actually going through and pulling out the questions that we had repeatedly, questions we had come through on Instagram, to answer those questions for you all, to give you a clearer picture of how we do things in those regards. Question number 1, how much does it really cost? Well, homeschooling can be anywhere from almost free with tons of library, community, and free online resources with, some supplies and things thrown in, to literal thousands of dollars per child. It really depends on the programs you choose, if you choose to do co-ops, if those co-ops are just free mom organized community groups, or if they are corporate run systems that are taught by paid tutors, things of that nature. We tend to run kind of in the middle, on the less expensive side of things. It also depends on how you choose to do things. We definitely cut down on costs by doing group subjects. So one curriculum for history or science each year that costs roughly $50 or so for the books and workbooks can be used for all my kids that year. We also over the years have found kind of our stride with core subjects like math and language arts that we really like. So I can cut down on cost by what my oldest used when she first went through, and the corrections books I had for that curriculum are still usable with the curriculum that my 5th and 6th kids are going to be using as they come up through, because unless they really are profoundly different learners and need a completely different program, while I will have to buy them fresh work texts to write in themselves, I'll already have the corrections books and things like that. We also get reading texts and things like that from the library, or I will look for them used on places like eBay, so that a book that if purchased new would be upwards of $12 to $15 or more, I can usually get for about $3 to $6 shipped. If you have local places where you can get used books, go to used curriculum sales, library sales, things like that. You can save a lot of money that way if you know what you're looking for the upcoming year. In total, for my kids, I have 5 full-time students this year that I bought curriculum for. Some pieces are being used that past kids used, and teacher keys didn't need to be repurchased. I spent about $600. Question number 2. What kinds of things do you use to supplement science? When I did my curriculum videos, especially for my older kids, I talked about our group subjects and how history and science are done together, all grades. And I do a lot of supplementation with required reading for my bigger kids to dig deeper into those topics that we cover. We have a lot of nonfiction books from things like Usborne and Southwest Advantage, different book publishers like that give us a lot more in-depth information. And they range from like big board books like this on weather and climate to smaller books that are specific topics but a bit more mature, genes and DNA reference books. Here's another one. We have quite a few of these illustrated dictionaries. This is the Usborne Illustrated Dictionary of Chemistry with recommended websites, meaning on every page, this is on reactivity, where you're going to read the content and it will have websites for further information, activities, things like that, to go a bit deeper. We also go to the library every Monday, and because I do my lesson planning on Saturday or Sunday for the following week, I know it's coming up when we go to the library. I know what kind of content I'm looking for in library books, both in fun children's books and also in something a bit more mature and in-depth. I've found that those kinds of resources really help round things out and go deeper in a way that really makes it a much more comprehensive education than what my kids would be able to have access to in public school. Question number 3. I'm terrified I won't be able to properly educate my gifted child. Any tips? If you saw my 7th grader's curriculum video, he is gifted. He tests intellectually at brilliant. He also is what's called twice exceptional, meaning he has challenges, autism spectrum disorder and sensory processing disorder. Cognitively, he is close to genius. I get this struggle. It is intimidating. But I can tell you with great certainty that homeschooling is so much better for most gifted kids because they're not bound to whatever the class time allots, whatever the rest of the class is doing, whatever pace the rest of the class is going at. They have the freedom to dig in to whatever they are working on if they want to go further. They can do their work as quickly or as slowly as they want, and there's not that boredom factor. Boredom is the #1 killer of interest in education, especially for gifted kids. They are almost always held back to what the rest of the classroom is working on, regardless of whether it's a gifted classroom or not, because each child is so individual, and gifted kids are especially unique. They may be light years ahead in something like math or language skills, and then really struggle deeply with something like spelling. So homeschooling really gives you the freedom to do exactly what your kid needs. Homeschooling gives you so much freedom to fill their day with what they love, what they're interested in, what they want to dig into, while still dotting the I's and crossing the T's of all the technicalities they must learn for whatever grade level they're working on. I know it's intimidating, and so many parents with gifted kids in the school system have to fight so hard with their kids to do their homework, to get the basics done. And that is almost always because of boredom and lack of interest. And homeschooling completely banishes both of those issues. Question number 4. How do you grade or evaluate without using tests? So I talked in my videos about how we don't do tests. That is because we work on mastery, meaning the student has a full grasp on what it is that we're learning, whatever the content is. That doesn't need a grade. As a former school teacher, I can tell you with 100% certainty that the only reason, hey, stop, tests are administered is because teachers have such a huge classroom, multiple classes, a big workload, that they really aren't able to sit down and go over the day's work with each and every child to make sure they grasp that. The reason that students have homework is because teachers only have the bare minimum and often a woefully inadequate amount of time to teach the day's content and the day's lesson. So they don't have time to do that practice work, which is why the practice work is sent home with the children for homework in the evening to bring back the next day. Because I can teach my kids the lesson right there on the spot, and they can do the practice work, we can immediately go over it, work through what they struggled with, what they didn't understand, and do what it takes to help them truly understand it. They don't need homework. They don't need a grade, because I know grading is simply a way to report to the administration and the parents your child's progress. I am the administration and the parent and the teacher. I know what my kids are doing every single day, and I really don't need to slap a sheet in front of them and say, you've worked hard all week, but look, now do it again on this paper just to prove you actually get it. Even though I know you get it because I've been working with you all week long. When you're teaching your children, you know what they know. You know what they're struggling with, and you know what they're learning. You don't need a test sheet to tell you that. I also don't need to grade. I don't need to send in any kind of report card to the school system. When we lived in another state that did require a quarterly report, including grades, we worked on pass-fail, and guess what? My kids always passed. Because if they weren't passing, we did the work to make sure that they understood it and they were in fact passing. Part 2 to question 4 kind of was one that also came up a couple times, and that was, how will you make transcripts for your high schooler without tests and grades? Transcripts are about the credit hours, the courses done and mastered, and my kids are mastering their courses because we work hard at them until they do, and that is how transcripts are made. They're not about grades, they're about credit hours and completion, and my kids are achieving that. I know it seems so backwards because so many of us were raised in the traditional system, and people like me also taught professionally in that system. So we really can't imagine it any other way. And I can understand that that's a struggle. But the fact of the matter is, when you're working for mastery, you're not working for a grade. And there's no percentage to put on mastery because truly it's always 100%. Your kids are doing the work to always achieve 100%. Question number 5. How do you teach history and current events without making kids feel stressed? That really is something that I feel is more of a parenting issue. We don't watch the news for many reasons. We do have mealtime, discussion time. We don't sit down and talk current events as a matter of history. It's a matter of family discussion and sitting down at the dinner table and talking about what they heard said in passing and what's going on in the world. And we as parents have the liberty to frame that in a way that gives them a developmentally appropriate context and understanding. When they don't have the outside exposures of the school system, the teachers, the news sources, you have the liberty as the parents to teach them how and what they need to know. So you can work that into a way that is not stressful for your kids. So I really see that aspect as more of a parenting issue and a parenting dialogue that needs to happen than something we focus on as a school subject. Question number 6, how do you teach science and when do you introduce Christian theories? Science we do as a group subject. For us, we do apologia, we do the reading aloud, we take notes, we have activity sheets. The younger kids like to draw as they listen to the learning. We talk back and forth, we talk about keywords, vocabulary words. We supplement with the reading that I talked about in the earlier question. And then on Fun Fridays, we do any experiments or projects that have come up in that week's science content. As for when we introduce Christian theory, because our family is a family of faith, the aspect of our belief in intelligent design is just part of family culture. It's just sort of a statement of fact that they roll with. My kids are aware of evolution and evolution theories. We've talked about all of those things, especially the bigger kids, because we are very careful to make sure that our kids know that not everyone believes exactly the same thing. People have all different beliefs about all different things, and that is a freedom that we have. No one is any lesser or greater because of their beliefs. They're just differences in beliefs. And question number 7, how do you get a 6-year-old to write and read more? Well, 6 is pretty young, actually, to be doing much reading and writing. Most of my kids didn't read proficiently until they were 6 or 7. And even then, it was really just enjoyable reading, and I did more reading to them than anything else. The writing process comes. It really depends on your curriculum. We use Abeka, which is pretty strong on grammar and the creative writing process, but even Abeka doesn't start really teaching the creative writing process until late 2nd, early 3rd grade. And with that, they just start with showing the child a picture on the page. And they basically say, look at this picture. Based on their grammatical learning that they have already done, write 3 complete sentences about what you think might be going on in the picture, things of that nature. And they build on it over the course of the year. Because Becca does such a great job emphasizing creative writing and that creative writing process, my kids really love writing stories, writing books. You will find any number of little packets of printer paper folded in half and stapled at the spine to make a little book and filled in with stories, whether it be a comic book for my more artistic kids telling stories that way, or actual like a chapter book or a series of little packets that are a series of chapter books because they've learned that's something they love. But when a child is 6, I have found that just reading to them and encouraging a love of reading, a love of exploring what's in books, what books have to offer us, and the fun and adventure that can be in books is really the best way to kind of light their little inner fire about reading, and writing will eventually come. And that is it for the most frequently asked questions in this year's curriculum videos. I do still have my preschool curriculum video coming up. It's just taking me a little longer to get that done, but I wanted to sit down today and answer these questions to be able to get these out for you all. If you have any other questions, as always, please feel free to put those in the comments section below. Share this with anyone you think might find it useful, and subscribe if you'd like to hang out for more. We'll see you again soon.